And then, of course, the second big tactic that I hear about a lot is what I have coined as manufactured conflict.
Oh, interesting.
So, yeah, so that's a situation where someone is, it actually aligns to the earlier tactic we were talking about, called dropping the seed. Manufactured conflict is actually someone gaslighting you, creating conflict with you that has an ulterior motive. So what they want to do is put you in a negative light, put them in a positive light because they want something. And what I found in my research is that, unfortunately, 100% of high performers are the ones who are being targeted, bullied, and abused in the workplace. 70% of women and 35% of men. So women are encountering these experiences at twice the rate of men, and people of color are experiencing this at a higher rate than their white counterparts. So if you can believe it, and this was really the biggest aha in the research, is that the higher the performer that you are, so the better you are, the better results that you drive, the better leader that you are to your people, the better developer you are of people, the one who gets the best results in a positive way. You have a target on your back. You will be targeted and bullied and abused 100% of the time during your career.
Wow. Okay. So what's interesting to hear you talk about this, particularly the manufactured conflict and how it correlates to kind of moving up in your career. Mm-hmm. I'd be curious to your thoughts around how common you see that as you get closer to the C-suite. Because then it's so often the role of those individuals is the function, and functions have natural tensions, right? Sales and marketing are not always going to get along with finance or operations. Right. One's a gas pedal, one's a brake pedal. It's designed that way.
Right.
But it's easy to say, well, the reason why I didn't deliver results is because that person over there, they've been causing problems. They're not playing nice in the sandbox. And if their people would only do such and such, then. So do you see that as a little more common or pervasive as you start to, as your identity starts to get associated with a function?
It's definitely more pervasive the higher you go. And I think what I have found, though, is that the difference in those C-suites between healthy conflict, because sometimes, like you said, healthy conflict can be healthy and it can actually create better outcomes. Then there's the manufactured conflict, which is creating conflict for their own personal gain.
Exactly.
The difference between the two, a lot of times, is the leader. Leaders who can spot manufactured conflict and dissolve the issue fairly immediately, those individuals typically leave the team. They will leave the organization, they will leave the division because they cannot carry out their personal plan. And so that's where CEOs and leaders, executives need to be very keen on what these tactics are and not to trust, unfortunately, everyone's behavior on their team. And that's unfortunately what you find is that the higher you go, typically the executives are aligned to a particular leader. Sometimes leaders move companies that bring some of their team along with them, and they really believe everything that they say. And unfortunately, you do want to trust your team. But what executives have to remember, and the best ones do this, they remember that everyone comes to them through their own lens. And a lot of times that's personally driven.
So let's talk about that manufactured conflict, because I've often found with some of my clients that have encountered that, if they're pretty high up in the altitude of the organization, they don't want to tap the shoulder of the president or the CEO and say, hey, help me with this. Mm-hmm. They feel like it's their job to resolve this themselves. Right. And if they can avoid that noise to the CEO and the president, even better. So I don't know what you would counsel, but what would, if let's say we're a vice president and we're starting to encounter this, well, how should we approach it? What's the right strategy?
I talk to executives every day that are going through this, and you're exactly right. They don't want to go to their boss and say, hey, Joe over here is actually, telling you things that aren't true. I think he's manufacturing conflict because he wants my division. Okay, they don't have time for that, right? And you can't really go to HR because they neither have the resources or the information or the education to actually help you through it. So what I'm finding is that most executives know if you're going to achieve that level and you're going to have a great deal of success, you have to talk to someone about this. And a lot of times your spouse is a good one to listen, but they really don't know how to help you unless they're at an equal level, maybe within or without outside the industry. And so a lot of individuals obviously are at that level, find a coach who can help them through that, who can help them work through and identify what the conflict actually is and how best to successfully resolve it while maintaining a relationship. I think where it gets really, really dicey and difficult is that most individuals that are targeted, so these are the high performers, they play the game above board. They're ethical, they're truthful. That unfortunately doesn't play well when the game being played against you is unethical manufacturing conflict. And so, but again, I always coach my executives to take the high road. Even if it doesn't work out in this particular situation, your career is made up of a lot of opportunities to do the wrong thing. Doing the right thing is what you should always choose.